Thank you very much for the invitation. I mean, first of all, it's always nice to come to Maastricht. It's beautiful. Second, I'm very interested in seeing the new faculty or the up-and-coming faculty and hear about this idea, which sounds very interesting. And also, you mentioned it, it's also sort of a little return to Professor Jo Koenen's engagement at the MSA, which he sometimes does, and it's always a fantastic teaching that he gives us. You mentioned already I'm in partnership with Peter Wilson, have been for a long time. I'm a professor for design at the MSA. I'm the dean. I'm a housewife. I say that for the women in the audience. I'm a housewife, and also there are some kids. I mean, they're grown up now, but just to mention, to give the full picture, because it is actually a lot of work, but it still is okay. I've brought today a selection of projects, not, something is rumbling here. It's not my stomach, is this here? I brought a selection of projects not so much to sort of spread glamour, but more to show how one works in different places, how one works in different situations, and a bit what the profession is about today, or maybe how it was and how it has changed. I would like to start with our own office. We are situated now for 6 years in the so-called harbor. It's just a small basin, and it's probably ridiculous to Dutch people, but still it's the only bit of water in Minster, and we managed to buy a site, and you could see it on the upper picture with the dart, and on the lower one, and I think the lower one gives a good feel or a good idea of what we thought of the buildings that we had to design. This sort of rusty bit, this dark colors, this industrial, and we had the commission to do 2 buildings. One was our own, we developed it ourselves, and the second one on the left is for an insurance, and we tried to build something on the proportion of quite a normal warehouse, but since there were 2 clients, and the insurance as clients, they have different attitude towards architecture. They need more solidity, they need kind of bricks, so they wanted it to look different, which is okay. We designed it for them with these single windows, and our office on the right is this one with a lot of glass. One can see the building on the left at night and on the right during the day. The area on the so-called harbor has quickly become the most favorite stretch for restaurants and discotheques, and not at all what we sort of imagined it to be, sort of something quiet, a bit melancholic, you know, sort of have a few flags rustling in the wind. So now we sit in the middle of the, sort of the epicenter of Minster, of discotheque and music and events, and on restaurant goers, and but since our office is very high up on the top floors, we don't hear very much. The little picture shows, of course, what is lit is the offices in our building. Architects work very late, sort of creative people in the building. So on the other side, it's all dark already. I show this as part of the brick building, and I show it because it shows really well what we understand of detailing, how you go around the corner. It's not just a corner or sort of with 90 degrees, but you lead people around, and it has a sort of a softness. The building has undersides, and everything needs carefully designing. And I think a lot of, and it has a sort of what do you call it, a drall, something, some movement around the corner. It's not static, and I think it stands for a lot of our architecture. The buildings on the left, one can see when the sun comes, the buildings shut down. There's a very efficient sun louvers, and it is part of our strategy of a sort of a low-tech attitude towards energy, what do you call it, saving strategies. And you can see on the right, it's an image of our office. The ceilings, for instance, are all equipped with pipes. And in the pipes there is a low temperature heating system that heats in winter, and in summer we can cool it with cool water. And we almost don't need any more energy, just this in the ceiling, and it gives off a very temperate, very modest kind of heat, and makes a very nice spatial, a very nice atmosphere. We are increasingly, of course, concerned with the energy saving mechanisms building have to fulfill nowadays. I will talk about it sort of later as well. And we opted for our own building for a very simple way of doing this. Aesthetics play a role as well. We wanted the ceilings to be absolutely clear of, I don't know, smoke detectors and fire precaution things, even of lights, and to have the view wandering freely, sort of from inside to the outside to the water. And in the building, everyone else, except from us as well, have to comply with this and have to install lights that shine from the bottom to the ceiling and being reflected. But it works quite well. I mean, one can have a sort of a plan, and one can include other people in that as well, and they sort of come along with it. On the other side, the building is quite flexible and open. On the other side, though, to the north, the facade is quite specific. It is here kind of clad in colored metal panels in what we call somber, very dark colors. I'm not sure where exactly the inspiration came from, but we looked at an early drawing by Max Klee. He used early on very similar colors, sort of dark greens and browns, reds, etc. And then he scratched little trees into these colors. I think it might have come from there, but it might not. But anyway, I mean, it is quite a sort of a colorful facade which lights up when the sun very late in the west sort of comes around and shines on it. Otherwise, the facade is very simple. It has fixed windows and very slim, narrow opening bits for ventilation. A quick look at the plans. The plans is on the left is the building with for the insurance company, and on the right is one of our plans. It is sort of the loft planning is the aim is to have the biggest or the highest possible flexibility that you can achieve in a plan like that. So it's an open plan, and you just have to see where you put the runs of pipes. And on the left is sort of a center position for the pipes, so they can divide it into 2, 3, or 4 rentable spaces. And on our side, we have the the pipe runs on the right and on the left, so we can divide it into two. But the two can be varied. They can be smaller or bigger. Could be one very big one and one very small one, or two equal ones. It means that you have to, in this sense, already you have to plan for the market. You have to plan for a situation which you cannot foresee. And as an architect, you have to test. You have to come up with very simple devices, so you can then enable a whole range of possibilities. Because the plans are very deep, they are 22 or even 24 meters deep, which is too deep for a normal office building, which is normally around 12, 13 meters. We reinforced the ceilings in the middle zone, and in our office, for instance, you have this storage, mechanical storage installation where all our files are stored, which has turned out to be sort of a lively store. I mean, usually you put away the files somewhere in the cellar or in some rented rooms, but here they are there, and they have the people in our office have access to them all the time, and they walk through this file system, which has turned out to be a really good solution. And at one stage, or at one position, we allowed our 2 floors to extend into the vertical dimension to make a bit of room and to get light from above. In the other rented floors, they're very simple. They don't open up. But in this situation, down there is our secretary, and we run up the stairs on our 2 floors. You mentioned this move from London to Minster, and the reason was indeed the city library. I picked out these two images. I mean, the building is now very old. It was opened in '93. But for us as a family and as an office, of course, that was a very important step. It sounds, first of all, it sounds silly to move from London to Minster. I mean, it's sort of, London is where the culture is, where everything is, and Minster is a small city. But on the other hand, it gave us the possibility to get out of this London or this English very limited existence as an architect. It was the years when Margaret Thatcher got into power, and building was down anyway, public building anyway. And also I traveled with the 2 kids quite often between London and Münster to secure this job, which came out of a competition, which actually most of our work comes out of architectural competitions. And it turned out that it was also not a bad move to bring up kids. I mean, I only say that so to mix in a few kind of details that one has to somehow manage as well. So all in all, for us, it was actually a very positive move. And from then on, from Münster on, we developed the office that grew, and not only national, but we also moved into an international scene, which we had in London already. So we brought it with us. But then from Münster, as the headquarters, and it still is. We've never expanded. We've never had any dependancen. One can work fantastically. Münster doesn't offer much cultural things, so you are left alone. You can do a lot of work, which suits us fine. And I want to sort of move now a little bit into this international work and to say a little bit also about what one encounters when one works, let's say, in Japan or in Rotterdam or in Albania. The first little project which we planned at the time we moved to Minster is this little house in Tokyo. It's a private house and for a little small family. And basically on the right you can see the axonometric. It is a continuous staircase with a few platforms, and the life actually happens on these platforms. I mean, the main thing is the stair. And the family moves up and down, and on one of the platforms is the kitchen, on one is sort of a living space, and on a different one is the bedroom. Right on top is the box hanging into the airspace, which is the room of the daughter of the family. The working in Japan was for us, of course, the first experience was a totally different culture. The plans we produced were sort of beautifully bound as a book. This was sort of an DIN A3 book format. We had to deal with earthquake-safe buildings, which is very actual, of course, and also with a whole different way of living and a way of communicating. It is with the Japanese client. It was not very easy to find out what they really wanted. One would talk about bedrooms and they would say, yes, we need a bedroom. And so we planned a bedroom, and then later it turned out they wanted 2 bedrooms, but they wouldn't talk about. So it went always, the whole time it went forward and backward, and one had to really kind of do sort of detective work to find out what was really wanted. What is also for us, whenever we go into a different country, I think it is still a great pleasure to encounter a different culture. We try to embrace that culture. We try to read books, or we try to find out what it is, what this culture is about. And for instance, this little celebration on the side before the building started, where the Shinto priest kind of explains to the gods of the site who is involved, who are the actors, the builder, the client, the architect, sort of things like that. So this was our we've done several things in Japan, but that came to a very quick end when in Japan the bubble burst, the economic bubble. And this is quite a while ago. And I think it looks as if it would take a long while till they are sort of back on their feet again. The project in Rotterdam, the Luxor Theatre, that was also a competition. It was very prominently, there was Rem Koolhaas, I think, and I've forgotten, Hermann Herzberger and Dick Hochstadt. They were sort of important architects, and we won this competition, which of course is a rare privilege. And we like this project for a special reason also. It's, I mean, of course it's a theater, it's a music theater. And with all buildings that where the clients are cultural people, it is always a bit nicer than, let's say, play or plan for a bank or an insurance company. These people are more enthusiastic, they go more with you, and maybe it's a cliche, I don't know, but I mean our experience whenever we plan for someone who has something to do with theater or library or so, it is always somehow more personal and more enjoyable in the end. The Luxor, I think, is a very important project because it is the city of Rotterdam put it there where it is on the edge of the city on the Wilhelmina Pier, and it was I think, meant to be a gesture to Feyenoord, to the area outside the city center that is maybe socially underprivileged, and it was sort of a gesture to invite them to have culture, to take part in the culture of the city of Rotterdam. And this, I think, this element of social importance for a project, I think this is something that is very dear to our heart, and I think I show later, or maybe it becomes clearer, that our focus increasingly becomes on projects that have something to do with society at large, with the social contract, which is sort of one thing that we architects have to comply. The Luxor Theatre was also very difficult because one can see it at this model. The site was basically far too small to house the foyer, the stage, the auditorium, and the delivery. And what we did is that we had the stage on the first floor, the foyer on the ground floor, and the lorries that deliver the backdrops, etc. They drive up a ramp, and they then drive onto this grey bit that extends over the Maas, and then they drive backwards with their back part, so to speak, onto the backstage. And there was basically no other way to solve that problem, and I believe that none of the other schemes actually did really solve it. And of course it's not easy to build this, because the ramp with the lorries sort of vibrates, and the theater of course has to be absolutely quiet, so one needed to come up with a very clean, clear cut between the buildings, and there is like a snail, they sort of run into each other. And so the building is sort of this continuous red band. One can see, one goes under the red band. It's 40 meters high, as high as the tower, and one moves inside the theater, always along this red, right into the auditorium. So it is a very dynamic, a very moving building, and it's on the place where it stands, it's windswept. There is nothing. There is no major elevation. There is traffic all around. There are huge buildings now, sort of high-rise. So it can't have any sort of main facade. So this is why it kind of pirouettes. It does a choreography on the place where it stands, and sort of lets the people in. At night it's very glamorous, as Dutch theatres obviously are. We look always very, from Germany, theatre is more serious, sort of more tragic. And we found that in the Netherlands there is a very healthy culture of musical, of comedy. So there is, apparently there's a very lively culture around the theatre, which in this picture I think shows most. You see the ramp, and the ramp of course we used on the inside. This is on the left is the big entrance, and on the right you can see under the auditorium, you can recognize, you can feel the weight of the auditorium, and on the right is the coat racks. And here one can see how you move up on top of the lorry ramp onto the main foyer of the theatre. So this is the big Maas foyer, which showed before in the lit evening picture from the outside. This is now from the inside. And the theatre as well, for us in Germany, very interesting, has many bars. So theatre is always obviously combined with entertainment, and So this is something that one should try maybe in our country to introduce. Yeah, and the two little old ladies sitting there, and the auditorium, which is wider than it's deep. On special request of the director, he wanted the personal connection to every visitor, and obviously the main color is red. It's a very theatrical color, and on the ceiling you can see maybe the catwalks for the lighting, and they are not quite visible. Some very nice acoustic clouds by Jaap van Lieshout. I must say we have, but it's quite a while ago, we have had quite a few projects in Holland. I think at times we almost were a Dutch office with Dutch people working there. There's a lot of Dutch spoken in our office. Yeah, and this was one of the projects. It was, in fact, I think, earlier than the Luxor, and it's in Hengelo. It is a new public space characterized by this clock tower, and public space is something that is also continuously something of our concern, which we try very much to include into our buildings, at least as far sort of libraries are concerned. Buildings that are in the end public. This was it was a funny thing. It was also a competition, and when the competition model was, somebody reported that to us, when the competition was on the table and the judges stood around, and one of the judges, because the tower was not called for, it was not in the program, and one of the judges said, we don't need this tower. This tower costs money, and we don't need it, and this scheme is no good. And then somebody, by mistake, sort of hit or bumped the tower. The thing fell over, and suddenly they all saw that the tower was really important. The tower actually pinned the public space in this place, and in the end, they decided on this scheme. And we managed to make the tower work. I mean, it was used for advertising, it was rented out, so in the end it didn't cost any more. On the left is a department store for Vroom and Dressmann, and that was also very interesting for us, because we had drawn the plans, and at one day the client, I think it was ING, they asked us to take out all the openings, all the windows from the elevations. We said, well, what for? No? And then they took the plans and went and met with Vroom and Dressmann, and they had talks about how much the rented space would cost, etc., etc. And then Vroom and Dressmann said, well, but we need a window somewhere. And then ING said, yeah, sure, but okay, but that costs. So basically, they would sit together and sell every window sort of one by one, and for us it was very new, to say the least. But it seemed that this is quite normal dealing, because they both knew what they were talking about, and it seems that it's quite common to actually, in this case, to actually talk about how much window one needs, and whatever you need, you pay for. I'm showing another project. This is the Spoimarkt in The Hague, which I think was finished a few years ago, and I'm only showing these two pictures and a detail. I think we tried here as well. It's very central. It is opposite Richard Meyer's town hall, so it's very prominent. And we tried, and shopping is difficult. It is always, it's an ungrateful job, to be honest. I mean, the project ran for over 10 years. It was never quite clear who the tenants would be. It has cinemas and shops, and we planned it, I think, I don't know, 5 times, 6 times, replanned it, very frustrating. And in the end, it was fixed. But what we tried very hard is to build into this building, which is obviously very close to the main pedestrian street, to have a direct relationship with the public space. So the new building has this huge stair, which is open to the outside, and basically where the public space is being folded into the building, to make a more direct and a better connection to the shopping places and the street. And the neighboring Bijenkorf on the right, on the bottom right, with a beautiful listed facade, of course, is always an obligation to try with a new building to take something from the richness of detail, of materials, and to incorporate into the new architecture. And also to try the very little picture up there, to try to incorporate advertising as well. And I think, for instance, Maastricht is an ace example for fantastic, very successful control of advertising. I was for a very long time in the so-called Gestaltungsbeirat in Salzburg, and this was also, it's a highly sensitive area. It's Weltkulturerbe, etc. And I think every project was always about the fight, sort of, to keep advertisement sort of as small and as low as possible. This idea of incorporating public space into libraries is also in this library in Helmond, which has just been opened. And one can see on the right-hand side the ground floor plan for the library, which you can traverse. On the top is Piet Blom's tree houses, so also a very particular site the building neighbors onto. And the rest of the ground floor is shopping, and of course, it's quite clear the shopping pays for the public function. So as an architect now, you have to try to combine these things in sort of an acceptable way. I mean, they have to go hand in hand, because otherwise cities don't develop any further, and the public has no more money. I mean, here as well as in Germany. So one has to kind of help with concepts like that to make it urbane, to make it enjoyable, but to also to incorporate shopping, which is, I don't want to say shopping is bad, but it's kind of sometimes it's sort of a necessary thing, and one has to sort of treat it in an innovative way. Also the outside, I think one can see here clearly that we tried very much to look what is around the building, to incorporate the materials and the material quality of the brick of the Helmond neighborhood. Jump now a bit further. This is to Milano and to the library that we have been planning now for 11 years, with a few breaks. And I think it must be actually very bitter for you, having done the planning, the competition, and then to have the drawings stuck on some airport. And I'm not sure whether I would show it today if it had been delivered. Probably you would report on the project. But as it is, I mean, we did it, and the picture shows it's a very interesting, prominent site, very close to the Duomo there on the left-hand side, and it's a very important project. I think it's the biggest public project in Italy, and it's for learning. I mean, it's another library, and in this case, we ventured to be the general planner, which means we were the sort of the controlling head of the projects, and we contracted to Italian subcontractors. I think it was enormously ambitious and probably a bit foolish to say, because if this is your first project, you do the general planner, you jump really right at the deep end here to do it in Italy with Italian partners, which were like a sack of fleas to control. Italians have a different sensibility to time and to costs, and for them, it's time is flowing and costs are not quite so serious and so important. So it is very difficult. But in the end, we made it, and it looks good. But you said it's going to be built, and we certainly hope so. And officially, it has the go-ahead, but nobody knows whether the money is there or not. So it's a little bit still open. With this project, I remember that for months I studied Italian contracts. I studied Italian legal things. For instance, is there a very complex anti-corruption law? And one has to be familiar with all these things. One has to study it. We had several people in the office who spoke Italian. They had to translate it. It's very complex. They had to translate it, and we looked into all these things. And in my life, I've done a lot of architects' contracts, and I think I know more about it than any legal person. But Italy is something else, and but in the end, I think even if we wouldn't have done any other Italian project, it's still worthwhile, because you look into different thinking, in different legal thinking, in different mechanisms, in different procedures, and I think it's without you knowing how the things go, you are basically lost in a case like this. A word on the building. The building is this huge main bulk of the building, and since it was a train station, there are these reading arms stuck through the main building part, and also this. And I put the pictures of the library again into it, because I forgot to say before, the library is also, it's a public space where you move through. It's a passage. It's almost like a street. And we try to do something very similar at the library in Milano, which is about 10 times the size of Minster. You can see here how you go up into the main building, and you come out at the other side. Obviously, on both sides there are important points, sort of underground stations or the inner city center, which are being connected. The main building is clad in very beautiful pastel colored tiles, and also this building had to be earthquake safe. That was also new to us, that Milano was earthquake zone, which put quite a strain on the planning. Apart from all this archaeological service, what you have to do in Italy, because you never know what's in the ground. The section to the building shows you are looking in the direction of this passage, this mall, with bookshops, with cafes, and on the upper floors, the library floors. The floors are very thick, because we designed a very special construction, which shows on the next picture. It's sort of a wave. It's sort of in concrete, and underneath the ceiling there is nothing. It also is kept empty, and all the services are on top on a double floor. And these are basically the diagrams of the static engineers. One can see with the waves how the load, how the power, where the power is, where where the ceiling need to be fat to carry all that weight, and where they can get really sort of very thin and make this beautiful spatial curve. And on the bottom, one can see it's the stress test, where you see where the concrete bits are compressed, and where they are pulled with the two colors, and it gives you, I think, a very good feeling for the static behavior of the construction. And the last picture is one of Peter's drawings. We work a lot with drawings like those. They are freehand. They are very quick, although nobody in the office can draw that well, so he is the one who has, in the end, has to produce sort of beautiful sketches. I wished the students would draw more, because then they could do this as well. I tell them all the time. And it shows the landscape that is going to be in the library. And on the bottom is, it's one designs, one goes right into detail and right to the table, to the reading lamp. But we don't only do libraries or music theaters or whatever. We are quite happy to do industrial buildings or commercial buildings. This is one of them. It has a very similar concept like the Luxor, this continuous band, and it's two furniture shops that belong to one client, but the clientele is different. There's on one hand, on the right hand side, there are the ones that like wood, they buy wooden things, healthy things, and there on the right hand side there are the more fashionable ones. They buy furniture made from plastic or steel. So we had to bring them together in one building, and we designed it like that, so they are kept apart, but in between is this sort of shared space, roofed over, and you can drive through, you can sit there, you can exhibit furniture, and the people can meet the healthy ones and the fashionable ones. The project is also sort of a pioneer in Minster, because normally this size furniture shop, you are not meant to move anywhere near the city center. I'm not sure whether it's like in the Netherlands, in Germany, these kind of large scale shops usually are situated at the city center, in shopping centers, etc. And we argued with the city. We said it's not good if you push all these things out. I think the city center can take it. They can take a larger scale shopping entities. And in the end, there was this agreement that the architecture had to be kind of good, and the parking had to be not in front but somewhere in the back. And so this is basically it's the first building that got moved much further to the inner city than normally these buildings do. And it's now a few years old, and it's as a rule now, if people want to sort of get closer to the inner city, they have to just have let's say an exemplary architecture. And I think that's it's a good move, because this shopping center and at the edge, they are certainly not the future of our cities. This is the same building at night. I want to show is a building for the shower and bathtub firm Kaldewey. They are probably known. They call themselves the Mercedes of shower trays, because they are actually thicker than others. They have 3.5 millimeter steel, and they enamel them in a very old-fashioned way, so they are very durable. And we had to design a new customer center on the site where the old family villa stood. And that was really quite painful, because it's obviously a family firm, and the senior Kaldewey, he wanted to keep the building. It was a horrific, sort of ugly building, but it was an emotional thing. He wanted the building where his grandparents and where Papa and Mama and the family grew up and so on. And we persuaded him to maybe to pull it down because it was definitely in the way. And instead, you see in the pavement is the plans of the former villa. And actually, in the end, he was quite satisfied, and he was happy. And the pots also they're from former times, and here it is for a firm like that. It's sort of the corporate identity one has to work out. We worked a lot with the family and tried to figure out what the image of themselves was. I mean, this is sort of a whole different thing where you sort of psychologically have to get into the feelings of the client. And we found that they have a very beautiful range of enamel of colors, and we used these enameled panels there to make a new facade like that. Most of the colors are no longer produced. I mean, they are produced, but I haven't seen a wash basin in this mid brown for a long time. And this thing now wraps around the old buildings and the new ones, and gives the Kaldewey image sort of a new freshness. On the inside, and that was quite a surprise, you can see this. It's very warm. It's wood. It's carefully designed, and we thought the Kaldewey were opting for cleanness or sort of white or sort of coolness or so, and that was not the case. They really wanted something sensual, something warm, and so in the end we opted for this wood. And there are, for instance, there are cabins, about 6 or 8 cabins, where you find the whirlpools, the jacuzzis. They're actually quite expensive. They cost as much as a little car. I mean, sort of a motor car. So they installed them in different, in let's say cool blue and warm wood, and you can try them out because, of course, it's very costly. So you can try them before you buy. You have to buy them, and you go there. You get a bathrobe, and they fill the tubs for you, and you jump into one, and you try it out, and you try the next one, and the third one, and all that. And there's quite a nice kind of sociological story about it. They told us that the Germans they want their bathtubs filled every time new. And the Belgians, they come in groups and they hop from one bathtub into the other. They have no qualms whatsoever. So there you are. There you have this sort of cultural differences. This is the office outing, sitting in the tubs that are being beautifully displayed, like an archipelago, and beautifully lit and looking quite precious. And one of the latest, this is actually very late, very recent. It's another very absolutely normal, cheap, 2-story storage for furniture. It's the same client as I showed before for the 2 different clientele, and they're just concrete panels. And to make them a little bit attractive, we painted them in those pyjama stripes, where we also talked for a long time with the client till we had the right brown and the right grey. He knows exactly what his clientele wants. And it's not about making, in the end, a beautiful combination of colors. You have to have the right color that appeals to the client's clientele. And there we learned a lot from him. I mean, you have to listen very carefully what he says. The thing is that this client is, I would say, slightly mad, and he told us that he wanted the roof, which is basically flat, to be set underwater. And we said, what? And I mean, the last thing you want as an architect is to have water on your roof, because you know, if it's not totally perfectly built, then you get drips and drops. And but he was totally set on it, and so we designed it for him. We did a lot of research. So there's about sort of 15, 20 centimeters water on the roof. It has a sort of continuous edge, which you don't see, sort of knife-sharp edge on an area of, it's 50 by 60 meters, so it's big. And we had research done in Darmstadt about a possible tsunami, what happens when there's a wind, how big are the waves and how much water goes over the edge at the first gust of wind and things like that. Because this is something you don't know as an architect. You are not trained to do this sort of thing. You are trained to keep the roof empty or free of water. And then, it was not easy to fill this roof, and somebody had the good idea to call the fire brigade. So they did their exercise, very nice, and it took a few hours, and then the roof was filled. So, and it's very simple. He has this door, and at the end is a sort of a few office floors, and the office comes just above the roof, and he has his meeting room there, and his let's say his top assistants, and he himself sits there. And of course it's calculating. I mean, every one of his visitors or business partners or so, he leads up there, and they just stand there open-mouthed. And and this is actually, this is something we like very much, because it shows that in very normal and sort of industrial buildings, there's a lot of potential. On the roofs, for instance, they're flat, there's nothing. You can collect energy, you could, of course, put a green roof onto it, you can do sort of crazy things like this. But I think we have, with clients like that, of course, it's easier, but one can think a little bit further. And I think this, it's risky what one does, but I think it's well worth it, and it's just beautiful to be up. It's not Minster, it's somewhere outside this world, so it's very nice. I think I have to be much quicker. I want to have a quick visit to Hamburg, where we do we have been doing what you call master planning. We have been involved in this sort of area where they would build tram wagons, which was not longer used, and we had to come up with a master plan. And the plan was not to demolish every building, but to keep some of them, and to plan for the area sort of different smaller bits, smaller bites that could be developed either for housing or for offices or for refurbishment. And this is something, I think, which is also increasingly part of our work, that we have to work with the developer, we have to think with him, we have to think how big are the bits that can be easily developed. We cannot, for instance, design huge structures that nobody would tackle because they are too big. A developer needs too much money to take into his hand to develop something. So this is sort of market research. This has to do with economics. And unless, as an architect, one knows about these things, one has, I think, no chance in the future to work on this level. That's why I want to show this, because it is for us as well. I mean, we had to sort of work our ways into this, and I wish that the students would get this faster. In one of Peter's sketches on the top left, how one could maybe imagine it could be. On the right is the old sheds, and on the bottom right, you can see it frontal on. They're beautiful small townhouses, and they're affordable, which means in the middle of, it's close to Eppendorf, very upmarket area. It can house families with kids. On the left, one can see it's sort of gone a bit rusty, but not for the worse. So this was a very successful development where we built also some sort of a tower with a residential tower. And this, of course, is very Hamburg. Again, is very brickwork, but we try to make it a bit lightweight with the winter gardens on the corner, and they are very nice outside play spaces, and one can see the brick a little bit closer with this with this relief. It's also sort of has a very close proximity to Hamburg traditional architecture. And these sort of things we do in quite a few places. We've done it, one master planning for Amersfoort. We've done in Newcastle, in funny places, and also in Albania, and in the second largest city. It's called Korcha, where we have rearranged the inner city, the pavements and some of the buildings. And this is sort of, I think, typical for planning, where one discusses developments together. And I think in the future, you probably have heard about Stuttgart 21, this massive protest against one of the largest projects by the Deutsche Bundesbahn. And I think the future will be that the big public projects, and not only public, probably also the private, will be discussed in future, and we as architects will have the role to actually to communicate and to discuss plans and to help the public to understand. Now, Albania, we've been involved in Albania for quite a while, and especially in Tirana. And Tirana is quite interesting because it has a Lord Mayor who's really a painter architect. And the city, Albania is poor. There's no doubt about that. And it was very grey, and he had the idea to just paint the buildings in sort of bright colors. And once he was doing it, people started talking about their houses. They said, "Why is my house now yellow and yours is blue? Or why couldn't I have an orange or maybe a pink?" And the moment the people talk about their city, they sort of adopt to it. They kind of they take into possession to their own city, and suddenly there was life in the city. There was a lot of movement. There was suddenly sort of what you call energy, and we found that we went to Tirana several times. We found it's a very young city. It's very optimistic. It's poor, but it's very interesting, and we came to be there by also a competition for a master plan on the right-hand side. I think Francine Huben was in the competition, and a French team. The French won it. It was a very Berlin scheme. Our plan was more trying to develop the small scale, the weaving of Tirana building, take it further, and one can see on the left-hand side also one of the important elements there are the main axis. Anyway, we lost it, but the mayor liked it very much, and in the following years we got sort of mails from him or phone calls and said, I've got this problem here, and I've got this ugly building, and couldn't you do something about it, and all that. And once there was a high-rise, a tower that was almost finished, and he said, I don't like it. So we got the plans and chopped it a bit off on the various sides and gave it a colorful facade and sort of things like that. There were a few new buildings, but sort of very small scale, and one has to be very innovative, because there is no technology, there is no money, but there is a lot of handwork still. And that is, one has to sort of adopt to that and think about what can you do in a country like that. And I quickly show a project which he gave us. He said, what can you do with this building? This is so drab and so boring and so ugly. And so we looked at it, I mean, it's difficult, of course, it's very difficult. And we saw that there are all these air conditioners, and we just made a theme of it. On the left is the drawing of the facade, and on the right a detail. And you can see it's very simple. There are stripes, there are bright colors, and then there are sort of the air conditioners, and there are empty spaces for possible future air conditioners. And then we sent a drawing, and then it took a few weeks, and then the building was finished. So things like that. So in Tirana, very new. On the left is Valerio Olgiati, you probably all know, with his very precise Swiss architecture. And on the right is very new, is Korb Himmelblau, have just won the competition for the parliament in Tirana. And I think, I'm not sure whether Olgiati it's okay. I mean, it looks actually very extraordinary, but apparently it was meant to be sort of empty floors with a few glass boxes and then this hanging facade parts. But the Albanians, what they do, of course, they push the glass right outside, because you get more space, to rent out. And so things like that you have to basically foresee and build it into your architecture to make it foolproof. So I wish Korb Himmelblau much of luck, and I hope they get it done as they wanted. This I just only briefly show. It's in Perugia. It's a project that is ongoing now, where we have the planning of this neighboring hill with a whole new structure of houses, which are then built by other architects. It's also sort of a master plan where we have just a few buildings, but most of them are given to others. And this is a picture into our workshop, where we build all our models ourselves. And increasingly we work with large-scale models, sort of much bigger than this. This is urban planning, but we build 1 to 50 models or so, and really work with them. And we've done it in the old days, and we have sort of brought it back, and it's very enjoyable. And to end this part, I show a very recent project. Also, it's a church in Minster. It's a sort of an oval arc, and I mean, it's like, who am I talking to? It's like bringing tulips to Amsterdam. I mean, you have lots of churches here, and we are in the Hotel Cruiseren. Of course, you are familiar with this. In Germany, this is rather new, that churches are being closed and being used for other things. And this one is not a listed church. And we could have pulled it down. It was also a competition, and we said we thought we leave it, because it's such a nice shape and such a nice space, and also it's in a neighborhood, and people know the shape and they're familiar with it, and it's in their memory. And why do away with it? So we designed this kindergarten on 2 floors into it. Including the playground on top. But what one has to say, one has to be honest about it. The costs for refurbishing and to build this thing into the oval, they are just higher than pull it all down and build it new. And this is something where we have to, and it's really cheaply built. I mean, this is no luxury here, but this is bothersome, and we have to think about it. And because every time you have to fight again if you want to keep something, this cost argument comes again and again and again, and we have to, as architects, I think we have to find to at least to be prepared to argue on that level. This was this part. Few words on the school. The Minster School of Architecture is in an old cavalry barracks from 1870, and it's quite a beautiful setting, and it's sort of a campus university. And we moved there in 2001, and we sort of started straight away to introduce bachelor-master course from, according to the Bologna program. And we dusted our curriculum and organized it into modules that are compatible and are combinable. And I think it works very well nowadays. We have, the school has, and I'm really quite proud, there is in Germany, there is a ranking of all schools of architecture, for instance, and we are sort of in Germany #1. And we always ask ourselves, why are we #1? Of course, the premises are nice. My colleagues are dedicated, and they're all professionals and strong personalities, so we have a huge diversity. But also we have a very special system with our students. We only are professors and students and no assistants in between. So we fill this gap with our students. They're organized, for instance, excursions. Sometimes the older ones teach the younger ones. And they decide with us and in committees. And for instance, one of my vice deans is a student, a female student. And we've now done that for, I think, 10 years. And I can only say it's fantastic. And what the students get up and above their sort of formal training as architects, I just continue doing this here, is what one calls sort of soft skills. They learn how to communicate, they learn how to organize, they learn how to get sponsor money, etc. And for instance, they have founded a limited liability company to run this little cafe in one of our buildings, which is the heart of the campus, very successful. So this is a system which I enjoy very much, the students enjoy very much. We meet each other with a lot of respect, but it's not a sort of an artificial respect that, let's say, the old university professor had to build up to be an authority. And wherever I come with my vice dean student, they get very nervous, which is good to see. So a bit more of the campus. There's a lot of activities. The students organize, let's say, World Cup football. They roll out a real lawn in the foyer. They work basically everywhere, digital and analog. And we have a sort of a claim to internationality. We have the first master semester is organized in very short design exercises where we invite famous and well-known and just professionals from all over the world. And they come from Maastricht, they come from Venice, they come from Brussels, from Paris, and here you see one of Jokun's absolutely brilliant pieces of criticism, which we enjoy every time he comes. It's just fantastic. And also the students, they celebrate. Like after these crits, there is a short celebration. So there are things done in style. And also this, I think, is very important nowadays. We try also to join up with other disciplines. This is a design I did with an artist, and there was in the end an exhibition in the local theater. This I do quickly. That was a scheme sort of dealing with a huge, very prominent public space in Düsseldorf. This is rather interesting because it's a seminar of half architectural students, half legal students, dealing with copyright, which of course is fantastic because we as architects have this problem all the time. And we talked about the Reichstagskuppel, the famous thing, Calatrava, Foster, etc. You know, so and it was really very interesting. We learned a lot. We did, for instance, this is really one of our projects in the office where we did refurbishment of the prison library in Minster, and this project then, the concept, 5 words, because it's actually really quite nice. It's this little triangular space up there, and what we did, we ordered it, we made it lighter, and we had the shelves, the prisoners built the shelves themselves, and on top of the shelves there are mirrors, and the triangular room sort of extends into the octagon. So it was such an interesting project to actually to break through the walls of the prison. I mean, even if it's only virtual. And this project we took then into the MSA, the school, and on these pictures on top and on the bottom are 2 lots of directors of prisons. And now the students designed 15 new libraries, and they're being built, I mean, maybe not 100%, but in parts. And this, I find, is a very, very good way also of, for architecture, a role to play to like a snowball, like an avalanche. You do something and then things happen from there. And this is when they do an exhibition in the city. And the last picture, this is another seminar I did with the oldies, we called it. It was a seminar called Oldies. And we just researched, you know, how do old people want to live, and they want to form a group, etc. So it's quite interesting. We call in philosophers, we call in sociologists, we talk about ecology and economy. We have in our faculty also life cycle costs, some specialists, and of course building management. And to round it up, I think the architecture, we just have a symposium in Minster about sustainable by design. It's called about sustainability. We just in the break we talked about it. I think sustainability and the whole energy turn, the energetic turn, has arrived in architecture. I think we can't ignore it. We have to all encompass this kind of energetically conscious design. Even more so since, for instance, the atomic power stations are much under question, at least in Germany. We also have to, this symposium, and that was very interesting. I want to tell it because it's so fresh. There was somebody from some property investment management or sort of real estate firm. And of course, these people, they look into costs, they look to relationship, for instance, passage space to gross floor area, etc. We all know these things. But they are very conscious of LEED, of BREEAM, of DGNB, of all these the certificates. They look for silver and gold because they know if they don't reinforce their buildings in the energetic way, they can't sell them or they can't rent them. So it's the market actually tells us what to do, and it's urgent. But what bothers me, I can say that as well. This guy said their biggest interest in their asset strategy is the measurability and the comparability of sustainability. It's a bit complex, but they want basically architecture to be measurable. They like for everything to have measures. For economical things, they don't quite know with this sustainability how to measure it. And what I thought very disturbing, he never mentioned the word architecture once. Not architecture, not architectural quality. And there I see a big problem. And because architectural quality is not measurable. We are dealing in a fairly irrational and creative thing, and we have to watch it that it's not being taken out of our hands. But at the same time, we have to know all the other bits. We have to know the economical things. We have to know the energetic things. We have to know how to develop a project. We have to know about life cycle costs, etc. Because if we don't know it, we are totally lost. We are a bit lost already, but I think we have to really be prepared that our let's say our core field of designing and architecture is being narrowed by all these kind of mathematical things.
I think it needs a little bit of explanation. We come from different backgrounds. I'm from the AA, sort of super creative, and Julie's from Karlsruhe, super detailed. I've learned from Julia how to detail, and she's learned from me how to fantasize. I think.
Is this still like that?
I think it means that we are able to sort of cross over. I'm maybe the quickest one with the pencil or pen or whatever it is. Julia is the one who can say that concept works and that concept doesn't, which means I'm living with my toughest critic. A very productive way of working.
The question was also meant to explain us your future idea, because this is the theme that we are speaking about. Do you have other ideas about this, as she mentioned?
I think Julia's definition of future is students, which is quite correct. It's the next generation. I think an aesthetic view of the future will be blobs. I think this is sort of science fiction magazines. The future is not aesthetic. The future is a question, I think, of where our priorities lie. And my problem with sustainability is, what are we sustaining? And we are actually sustaining our lifestyle as we live it now. And the question is this a sustainable lifestyle? And we've just been in India, and I think if I was to take an Indian perspective, I would say that lifestyles in Europe are completely wasteful, decadent, and selfish compared to the rest of the world. When we go to Albania or somewhere else, we are able to relativize a little bit. I think it's not a matter of saying we have to change everything, but we have to perhaps change our or direct our aspirations. I think our aspirations, it's an ethical responsibility we have in the first place. Not simply following the lead of the market. But I think we as architects can actually direct the market. This is a fairly exclusive position. Many people can analyze or do studies or write clever texts, but we as architects can physically change the world. And with the objects we bring into existence, we can maybe bring into existence a different set of aspirations, not just luxury in my cool car, but something else.
Okay. You mentioned that you made many contracts by yourself, and then there was a little small sentence. He said, "I think I will do it better as," and so on. You remember? She said this.
Well, we actually... Yes. We couldn't, and we didn't want to pay lawyers' fees. They are per hour, I don't know what. They're sort of astronomical. So it's basically meanness or lack of funds or so. So we did it ourselves. And with experience, you have seen so many contracts and so many aberrations of, clients' contracts that you know your way around.
Okay, this is the only reason, you see?
And Julia explains their strategy with teaching students to be generalists. I think this is something about our profession. Yes. We already are generalists because we deal with so many fields. Yeah. But in fact, we're also specialists in bringing all those fields together. I mean, we're actually a focus point in a very wide discipline. Mm-hmm. I think from having worked with Ian Gee for some time, the developer's logic is not very difficult to learn. But how to colonize it, how to use that logic, maybe for our purpose as architects. This is interesting.
European, because you are working abroad all the world and so on. You are from Australia, for instance. Is this a lesson for Europe? Is this global?
I think the European situation is certainly different to America's, yes. or one can't say developing countries anymore, but to South America or whatever. I think in Europe one has a wonderfully complex situation. It's a very wonderful. It's a very complex game of moving in and out of cultures and in and out of different measuring systems. It's a little bit more sort of solidified than in other countries in a more dynamic phase. A country like Albania or Kosovo, there in a first phase of change. But I find Europe still an enormously interesting field of operation, especially for us who move sort of across borders.
So our lesson of this evening was what you told us. Maybe there are some questions from you. Not at the moment. Maybe later. We will see. We have also other chances. The next time we will speak with another colleague from Belgium. He's the government architect of disappeared of Belgium at the moment. And we will repeat these questions after such a nice talk as you brought us to this evening. It's 5 to 10, so I will close this evening by saying I think that your message was clear already 30 years ago, when you started to invent in your small situation in London, and until today it didn't disappear, this spontaneous action, but also this rational remarks that you are making between the lines. I adore this, and I think the audience does also. Thank you.